Hello again. I am Dawn Janice, and this is my dear friend, Wendy Lee Baldwin Hargett. And we are here today with Lightweavings podcast, again, to ask you that question, what has dimmed your light? And the other question is, are you ready to do something about it? Some of the topics that we talk about may make some of you uncomfortable, but remember, that's where the magic happens and the breakthroughs come about, right, Wendy?
Absolutely.
And when we get on and start talking on this Zoom call, which is our podcast format, we don't usually know what we're going to be talking about. In fact, we never do. We just get on and start talking about our days and what's happened in our lives, and topics emerge. So, how has your week been, Wendy?
It's been a good week. There's been a lot of emotional highs. There's been some emotional lows. It's been, I just view every day as a beautiful day, a grateful day to be alive. But there are things that have definitely come up, and some things that I'm going to be taking a deeper look at for myself.
Mhm.
So, how about for you?
It's been a good week for reflection for me as well. I've taken a road trip to North Dakota and back in the month of July. Just got back to Arizona the other day, and I listened to some books. And one of the books that I listened to on Audible was a very interesting topic. And the name of the book is On Our Best Behavior. And it's about women and living in this patriarchal society for decades, for centuries. And what that means in accordance with the 7 deadly sins, which I always thought was a biblical thing, but it wasn't. It came out of Egypt.
Huh.
It's such an interesting book to listen to, and the author read it. Elise, I can't think of her last name right now. I will link it below, but she's an amazing author. And Gwyneth Paltrow, what was it? Goop? Is that what her company was called? Or
I Something like that.
yeah, she was the CSO of that company, and a writer. And she does a beautiful job of looking at the patriarchy and how it's affected women. And it was just enlightening. It was very enlightening. I listened to it twice. That's how good it was.
That sounds wonderful. I'll have to get that book.
It's really good. On Our Best Behavior.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it is on Audible, so that was a good way for me to travel and be productive at the same time and learn some new stuff, because I am a geek when it comes to this type of stuff. I admit it.
I am too. So tell us a little bit more. Like, what were a couple of your biggest takeaways from the book?
Uh, the 7 deadly sins, which are like sloth and anger and those types of things. What she did was she looked at the positive side of taking a break, for example, of taking time to ourselves, and also to understand that what that really means is that what it really meant to be a sloth in those days was to ignore truth and ignore
Hmm.
information, and believe in like conspiracy theories, because it was the easiest thing to believe in at the time. It was just an interesting way to see that we can take information that was given down through the ages, and we can adjust it however we want if it serves us for power and money. And that was fascinating to me.
Well, isn't that what they do with the history anyway? They kind of form it to however they want it to be, whoever's writing the history books, putting in people into power.
Yeah, it sure seems that way. Same with news organizations.
Yeah.
It's all about whatever is serving the entity that's putting it out,
Yeah.
usually. But of course, there's a lot of authors out there and journalists that are good at their job and they actually have integrity, but there's many that don't.
Hmm.
It was really, really interesting. But at the end, the whole premise of the book was that, and we've talked about this in this podcast before, not to put down men. It wasn't about that, because men have been negatively influenced by this patriarchal sort of toxic male energy too for centuries.
Mhm.
But it's more about allowing both the feminine and the masculine to work together
Mhm.
and to balance.
Mhm.
It's about balance. I mean, doesn't everything come down to that? About
Yeah. Yeah, it absolutely does. Yeah. Yeah, well, I'm glad that it wasn't doing any male bashing because that doesn't solve anything. And the men are just men are how they are because that's how we're taught, you know? And I love that we're coming into this new era that people are learning new ways of being, you know? Um, and especially, well, women and the men. So that's good.
yeah. So that was really interesting. There's also another book that I was listening to, and it's the Badass series. Have you seen those
Oh, I
books?
have, yeah.
You are a badass.
Yeah,
Jen Seneca, I believe her name is,
something
but
like that, yeah.
I don't know if you've listened to her read her books before, but she's hilarious. It was so good. She's you know, got a thin filter, does it a lot of things come through, or a thick filter, a lot of things come through, and I like that about her because she doesn't mince words. And so it was a nice balance, and of course, information about how to become a better human, and that's what it's all about. So it was a great trip. I got to get grounded, go back to where I grew up, that area, see family members along the way, stay by myself a few nights, saw some beautiful scenery, some beautiful country at a nice time of year to go up north, get out of the heat of Arizona. And I'm grateful for that break that I took for the month of July.
Yeah, it sounds wonderful. I love what you just said about being a better human.
Mm,
I feel that that's what we're on the path to is being a better human. And sometimes we don't always know how to be a better human.
mm, true. So there are ways that we can learn that, though. I mean, if we surround ourselves with new information, for example, the books I was talking about
Hmm.
they were enlightening to really search for truth. And community helps
Hmm.
to surround ourselves with the people that we see as, to me, I always like to hang out with people that raise the bar for me a bit, that know more than I know about certain topics that I'm interested in, that are really good human beings in my mind, from what I can see,
Hmm.
and to glean wisdom from them. Yeah. And those
Yeah.
that allow me to learn. There's some that don't.
Hmm. Yeah, and the sense of community is really important. Many of us grow up feeling like we're all alone,
Mm,
even if we're surrounded with family or friends, can still feel like we're all alone and can feel like the odd person out. And it seems like in some ways, perhaps over the course of time, in some areas, we've lost a lot of that community feeling.
mm,
And I know that women in particular need to have that sisterhood, that community, that support. And it's beautiful when you find your community. And I don't know how it is for you. I'm assuming it's probably a little bit similar, but I've always felt like this odd duck, like I don't fit in,
mm,
like the black sheep of the family. And so yeah, raising your hand. I knew that you would understand. And
yes.
so finding your people
Mhm,
is so important. It's such a game changer so that you don't feel alone, so you don't feel misunderstood. Somebody does understand exactly what you feel and how you're thinking and whatnot. And it just helps you to feel like you belong. It's really hard when you go through this life feeling like you don't belong. You can feel untethered. And when
Mhm.
you feel untethered and like you don't belong, you're missing out on so much happiness. And you just start to become numb. And you can even reach the point of thinking, well, what's the point?
Yeah, and that's a
You
scary
know?
thing, to
Mhm.
get to that point.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things that I did for myself on this trip was to allow myself to hold space for myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I talk about the bubbles of responsibility in your self bubble in my work.
Hmm.
And there's a tiny, tiny speck in that self bubble that is my ego, that is my earthly self, with all the information that I've gathered in this lifetime, and that little speck thinks it's everything. But in reality, there's a whole huge, beautiful, iridescent bubble that that tiny little speck resides in that is actually my true self.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that true self was talking to that little speck on the trip, going, all right, I'm holding space for you today. What is it that you need today?
Mm.
And so, I stopped when I wanted to stop. I stayed in a hotel when I found one that I felt like looked like a good place for me to be. And if the weather was bad, I stopped and spent the night. And every time I did that, it worked out well. So I felt like I was in the flow. But being able to hold space for myself was important, just like in a community that will hold space for me because, like for you, example, you listen because you care about what I have to say.
Mhm.
And
Yes, I do.
you hold space for me when I talk.
Mm.
And you're a good coach because of that. And I feel like that is extremely important for for us as community minded beings. We need to be with others that will hold space for us.
Hmm. Yeah. Sacred, loving space.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things that I tell my clients is that it's safe to share their deepest, darkest secrets because it is in a safe container,
Mhm.
because people don't have good outlets for sharing some of their deeper feelings. And I'll just give you a little bit of an example. This is something that was a really big eye opener for me when, as a holistic healer, working with other people, always obviously working with myself as well. I learned something from, I don't know if I mentioned this before, but from Dr. John Sarno, who was a famous back surgeon who used to do back surgery, but now helps his clients through emotional work. But in one of his books, in the back of it, he has a guest author, and he was talking about the importance of really getting down to how you feel about your parents.
Mhm.
And it can be scary to really acknowledge how you feel about your parents, because there can be a lot of guilt. And so, like, those are some really deep, dark secrets
Mhm.
inside that you don't want to tell somebody that you feel this way because, you don't want to be judged.
Sure.
And so, in a safe community, or a safe, if you're working with a coach, it's important to have that community, that safety, so that you can express that, so you can get that out of your system.
Mhm.
If you don't get that out of your system, it's just going to fester. And what happens whenever a wound festers, it just gets bigger and bigger, and it doesn't go away. I've had some really dark feelings that I've needed to acknowledge that were inside of me. And I've noticed that it's a relief to my clients when they know that it's okay to acknowledge how they really feel.
Yeah. Holding that space.
Yeah.
So that, and acknowledging, to
Yeah.
acknowledge how they really feel.
Yeah.
And not, you know, uh, like my parents, especially my mother, would tell me to deny my own feelings.
Mm.
Stop
Mhm.
feeling sorry for yourself was an example.
Mhm.
You don't have the right to do that for whatever
Mhm.
reason because others are more important, probably.
Mm.
Or you don't really feel like that. Stop crying. That's enough of that,
Mhm.
you know? Or go to your room. I don't want to see that. Like, that's not okay.
Yeah.
It's not okay. And it doesn't feel safe. Even that inner child is still there in me. She's still there
Yeah.
and still doesn't feel safe. I still hide when I'm going to cry. I
Mm.
still go hide myself, even when it's definitely justified to cry.
Mhm.
I still don't want to make others uncomfortable.
Mhm.
And so there's a safety factor in a lack of safety factor in admitting to a coach or whomever that you have negative feelings about a parent
Mhm.
because they were the ones that were responsible for us, and it wasn't safe to say something about them. It wasn't
Mhm.
safe because it's like a primal thing that we think we're going to be cast out.
Mhm.
It's deep still within us, even
Yeah.
though it doesn't make sense now, but it's still there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the reality of it is we all have childhood trauma of some sort, big or small, whatever it is. It doesn't matter. It's ours.
Mhm.
It doesn't matter if the parent meant to do something harmful. If it was perceived that way by us, then it's still a trauma.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
And everyone has their own, and nobody's wrong. Nobody's should say, oh no, that it's not right for you to feel that way. That's how you feel.
Mhm. Exactly.
Yeah. So to have a community that acknowledges and holds space for that is important for growth, healing, for sure. It comes after. Healing comes first and then growth is allowed. But to allow yourself to be truly centered in who you are, we have to get there. We have to really understand everything about ourselves and
Yeah.
love ourselves regardless of the situation.
Well, and that's the important thing is, the healing journey, it is all about learning to love yourself. As a coach, I know that you witness your clients that come to you and they have a hard time loving in themselves and realizing how magnificent that they are. I know that you and I have both been at the stage, early on in our healing journey that we didn't love ourselves. We didn't realize that we were, this pretty darn awesome person, and so it's just so beautiful to get to hold people's hands and witness them to go through that. um I know I had a couple thoughts, but you know how it is when things just all come to you at once.
Yes,
My mind just
I do.
took it in.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Oh,
It'll come back to you.
yeah, it will.
While you're thinking about it, I'm going to mention that I was part of a summit today, and it's a 3-day summit, and I was the first speaker this morning.
Yay.
Oh, yeah. Now I just get to listen for the rest of the next 2 days. But it was amazing by my good friend Aubrey Sanchez. She held this event, and what was interesting, Wendy, was that there's community there. There's more members of the community that I got to hear today because everything that we talked about was in that same vein of knowing who we are and
Mhm.
authentically loving her or him, um, just for who we are, that we are enough.
Yes.
We have everything in us already that we
Yes.
need. And to be able to like see that is so exciting.
And empowering. We don't have to go outside of ourselves for anything. We have all the resources inside. So yeah, that's awesome.
We do, but what a bonus that we get to have a community like that as well.
Right.
A
Right.
community that where we all think similarly and we can, you know, I hate to use this term, but feed off of each other and like learn something from the other person that fits with what we already know. And then it just builds on it. I guess building on it is probably what I meant to say.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Did that spur up your memory at all?
No, I moved on.
Okay.
I got the ADHD thing going on. Excuse me, sorry.
Well,
Uh,
we have so much going on in our brains, and we're such geeks when it comes to this stuff that, sometimes it's okay that we get overloaded. So yeah, so I'm
uh,
really grateful for community and for other coaches that are able to hold space for me as I am going through this next phase of growth in my life, because things come up.
mhm.
We will conquer a level, then we'll go to the next, and all of a sudden, oh, there's a whole new batch of things I got to work through.
I know, and you're like, dang it, I
I
thought I
know.
was done. How can we go any deeper?
Yeah.
Oh,
In
it's
this game
just
of life, it really is a video game with just different levels. There's never a winning. We just
I
keep.
know, I know. It's like, shoot, I guess that's right. We just keep growing and learning until we decide to part ways. Yeah, and speaking of the growing and going to the next levels, I think it's important to bring up that it's it's takes a lot of courage to reach out and get help, and that there are options out there. I talk to different people who don't understand that there is a way out. There's a way out of, I call it, the darkness. There's a way out of the pain and the suffering, and we're taught that we have to be that way, and we don't. There are all kinds of different options. There's the path that you and I offer. There's paths that so many people out there that offer different paths, and you just get to explore what path feels right for you. And what is beautiful is when people say, okay, yeah, I'm raising my hand, I'm going to be brave and taking that first step. And when they do, then they start seeing hope.
Mm.
Hope eternal. Hope is something that a lot of people lose hope. It becomes so numb and discouraged that you
Mm.
just lose hope and kind of sink into despair and depression, and just can't see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, I know it's really sad when that happens, but the reality of it is hope is a step towards eventually just having belief, and then faith is beyond that, because hope is like, oh, this could happen for me, and
Mm-hmm.
then belief is like, oh, this one particular thing is going to happen, but faith is accepting whatever does,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and just knowing that whatever happens, it's releasing the outcome is another way of saying it. Whatever happens was okay. This is where I am now. This is this is the reality that I stepped up into. And all right, this is exciting. It's kind of like going on a great adventure and with a blindfold on, not really know, where you're gonna end up.
Uh,
That happened to me once, actually. Somebody put me on a plane with a suitcase that somebody packed for me for my birthday, and I didn't know where I was going, and I ended up in San Diego. So
Aw, how wonderful.
yeah, with an interesting suitcase full of clothes that I would have never put together, but it was fun.
Oh, that's so funny. I just held on for the ride.
Exactly. So that's having some
Mm.
faith. It's like, okay, this is gonna be great, isn't it? I think the most scary part was what's in the suitcase.
Right. Too funny.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. Mm,
So enjoying the ride, and understanding that there is a community for you.
mhm.
Just have to have the faith.
Yeah. And what is beautiful is there's a community that you can't even see. All of us that are in this line of whatever you want to call it. I don't like to call it work. This line of play, that are here to help support humanity. This is a gigantic community. Whether you don't have to know everybody to be in the community. I was actually just talking with someone today. It's like there are people surrounding you with light and love that you haven't even met yet.
Mm. That's so fun to think of that,
Yeah.
because our souls are timeless,
Mm.
endless, ever knowing and ever being. And like I was talking about that bubble and thinking that, we are the speck, the ego, and that's all we are. But that whole rest of that bubble is hanging out with other people that they want to support, not even knowing it. I know that sounds way out there, but I think that's true. That we are surrounded. Of course, there's spirit guides, there's angels. I'm a big believer in that,
Yeah.
to know that we are guided and helped, and that there's protection and knowledge just through other spirits right beside us at all times. But to know that there are souls that are just waiting for us to say hello to them, to be a part of the community. And that happened to me with me today, as I met some new women that are like-minded on this summit, and it's exciting to build your community.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, the spirit realm that you brought up, I used to not believe in any of that.
Mm.
I used to even question if angels were real, and the thought of a spirit guide is like, "Are you kidding me?" You might as well tell me that, I'm surrounded by aliens and, it all just seemed really far-fetched. And through my healing and transformation, I've had some real interesting experiences with angel healing. Is so incredibly powerful. Had some interesting interactions with spirit guides, and it's it's really, we forget that we have that realm. And I'm glad that you brought that up, because if somebody is at the point that they're like, I don't know, that just seems kind of weird. It's okay to feel that way,
Yeah,
you
I
know?
felt that way too. I did too.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
until all of a sudden I didn't, because
Yeah.
the reality of it was there for me, and is still there.
Yeah.
So until that happens, to where you're shown that it's not what you were thinking, you're shown that it's more than that,
Hmm.
then you can't unlearn that.
Right.
But you got to learn it
Yeah.
as you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's good. It's part of the journey of not believing, maybe, and not understanding, or thinking that's just like, eh, not true.
Do you ever find yourself resisting what you need the most?
Yes. Pretty much the story of my life up until lately.
I think about that sometimes, and I kind of have to laugh about, okay, resisting just, on this topic here, resisting the thought of angels, resisting spirit guides, resisting, my whole mindset has shifted even around God, goddess, you know, uh, I've shared with you before, resisted vegetables, and I did get some healing on that, by the way.
Good. Just eat the salad before bed. That's what I want
Yeah.
to say.
Well, yeah, I told you before that, I could get in these states whenever I want to have vegetables. It sounds like a great idea, but it's time to make the salad. I can't make it, or I want to just, my gag reflex gets kicked in, and I seriously had to go do some deep healing on that. But it's
Mhm.
like, so these good things for you, it's like, what I mean, humans could be so weird. We resist it. We do the same thing with love. That's something else that comes to me often, is like, we will resist somebody loving us, or receiving money, which is, an act, a form of love. So we're just so weird sometimes, the things that we resist that are good for us.
Yes, weird in a loving way. Weird in a
Yes.
way that we can laugh at how weird we are. Absolutely. I am definitely a weird person. And
Yeah.
last night I had this event that I was speaking at in the morning, and I resisted just putting the words together. Like, seriously, just resisted it until it was like 10 o'clock at night. And I finally went, okay, I better do that now. It's
Yeah.
like, why did I do that to myself? But
Uh,
it was going to be easy. And so I just expected that, I can handle it, apparently.
yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like we give ourselves a challenge. I don't know.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Life is too easy, huh? How can I make it
Yeah.
harder?
Oh, I just love these talks that we have.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful that, we can just go on camera and just start talking, and up comes subjects And so this will be an interesting one to figure out really what was the topic today. Because
I have no
we went
idea.
down 6 different roads, but yeah, Dawn and Wendy go down 6 different roads on like podcast today.
It's Crazy Tuesday. We get to do that.
Yeah, okay, it's fine. Some days are like that.
Mm.
I'm grateful for you, and I'm grateful that you are part of my community. You are part of my tribe, and it is wonderful how we can build our family.
Mhm.
We
And
get
back at you. Yeah.
Thank you. It's an honor to be in your tribe and to be a family member in this world with you. It's an honor. So, and any of you that are looking for, maybe it's time that you want to build your tribe or get to know yourself better. That's what we're here for. That's why we have this podcast, because it's the work that we've done for ourselves. Wendy and I both have, and we do help others with that now. We're both coaches, we're life coaches, health coaches, and this is what we do. I call myself a self-actualization coach. And Wendy, what is your official title?
Personal empowerment leader.
Oh, I love that. Okay, what's not to love about getting some personal empowerment help? I mean, seriously,
Mm.
we all need it, no matter where we are in life, no matter who we are, where we've come from, we can all grow because life is a video game. I mean, we keep leveling up. So,
Yes, we do. And I just want to make sure and express that it's such an honor to be in your community as well. And I will forever be grateful that you reached out to me, to make that friendship connection.
yes,
So thank you
I,
for that.
I spotted you, girl. I did. I see you. All right. Well, thank you so much, all of you out there that are listening to the podcast and that are watching us on YouTube. We appreciate the time that you're spending with us. And please do share this video or podcast episode with somebody that you think could benefit from it. Yes, the 6 roads that Dawn and Wendy went down today. That's the title of this podcast. But I'm
Uh,
sure it'll all come together. And we look forward to you sharing this and subscribing, please. So thank
yes.
you so much, Wendy.
Thank you, Dawn. It's been a joy and an honor as always. And thank you, everybody. We really appreciate you.
All right. We'll talk to you next week.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.